God sent wisdom to earth along with other 70,000 archangels to search for the only heart where there would be no love towards the world, so that wisdom could live there. I found my place. Now you can go, said wisdom to the angels. Next morning the mortal was speaking God-given wisdom. This story is led by divine truth and wisdom, the threads of which take us to the east. The land of Aryans, where the fates of different nations have been crossed, histories and cultures have been carved out, and nations have survived, while recording their existence throughout centuries down to present. Over centuries, the sun has risen over the lake of Urmia and brought the vital light, each time filling up the human soul with hope and brightness. Salute the sun, salute Urmia, the witness of our nation's bitter and heroical history. All of these things that you see in the world rise from the sun of the other world. The world is like a face and eyebrows, hair and moles, and everything is unerringly in its place. Iran. Along with other nations, Assyrians made their shelters in this country. Assyrians, that is Isors, Nestorians, Nazrans. With the spread of Christianity, the Assyrian church communities began to take shape in Persia. Beginning in the 5th century, various Christian centers became active. According to tradition, the Syrians, being persecuted by religious secessions and conflicts in their homeland, moved to Urmia in the 6th century. During the 12th and 13th centuries, there were Assyrian episcopacies in the provinces of Salmast and Ushnuk. Assyrians living in the Hakkari's provinces of Julamerk and Mosul, which were in the territory of the Ottoman Empire, crossed the Persian border and settled across the western shore of Lake Urmia. This mountain range divides the Urmia Lake into western and eastern parts. The western part is larger and wrapped in mountains. While the eastern part is lower, encompassing Lake Urmia. The Syrian villages, surrounded with flowering gardens and vineyards, are mainly placed in this fertile land. Due to the favorable climate, rich natural heritage and caravan roads, the Urmia region was always of strategic significance. In different times, different nations, including Assyrians, created their heirs in this area. The Assyrians, living peacefully and exempt from Kurdish invasions, found their roofs in the northwestern and southwestern shores of Urmia. But a little piece of the nation flocked to the mountains, the provinces of Mergavar and Tergavar. And this wonderful piece of Persia became the promised land of the Assyrians. At one time, the basin of the Urmia was enfolded by the Assyrians. The number of their villages in 19th century amounted to 100. It is a hopeless task to find Assyrian populated villages today, but a range of humble standing churches and monasteries, ancient buildings and cemeteries have survived throughout centuries and become the living evidence of the Syria's glorious past. These are the outstanding facts of the nation's existence and power. The Assyrians in Persia were chiefly the followers of the Nestorian Church, now Holy Apostolic Catholic Assyrian Church of the East, which in the medieval times widely prospered and expanded. But as a result of historical changes and ups and downs, it was persecuted for its ideology. Only Only a few pieces of the once mighty church remain in 19th century. Enfolded across the Hakkari mountains and around Lake Urmia, under the leadership of Mar Shimun, whose seat was in the Kuchanis village of Hakkari's Jilo province. The villages of Ada, Armutagash, Ardishai, Gavilan and Gitaba were the bishopric villages of the Assyrian Church. Here is the Margevargis Bishopric Church of Supurgan village. Time seems frozen here. Where are your proud adherents, Margevargis? I want time to fly back so that I can hear my nation's prayer to the Lord, here, in this luminous shrine of my ancestors' relics. It is quiet in the yard. Only the old trees rustle. Who knows how they have planted these poplars? Perhaps humming a hearty song of whispering a prayer to God, beseeching Him protect and preserve this faithful nation. Your only devoted resident is the stork, Margevargis. It has woven its nest on your rooftop and now is looking around with proud silence, seeking the people who once abandoned this old village. According to historical data, Supurgan was one of the 3 regions from where, during the Lang-Timur invasions, the Assyrians had fled to the Zagros mountains of the Hakkari region in the Ottoman Empire. At one time, the village of Supurgan included more than 400 Assyrian families. The churches of this region were poor and simply constructed. It was stipulated by old tradition of Nestorian church. It was distinguished by its simple furnishing and lack of icons inside. Later, quite a few churches in the 19th century were changed and renovated by European and American missionaries. St. Petrus and Paulus, or Peter and Paul, is one of the old Assyrian churches of Urmia. According to legend, it was built in the 8th century by a medieval Syrian physician named Gabriel Bohtishu. Arabian resources describe him as a court physician and a family member of renowned Bohtishu doctors. From legends we know that there was a hospital here for sick people to come and have treatment. Gavilan was also one of the villages that belonged to the Eastern Church. Because of its insecure geographic location, Gavilan was often subjected to Kurdish attacks. On a hilltop is the church of Mar Yohanan. According to scripture, it was founded in the 13th century. Much can be known about Persia's Assyrians and their villages from the rich descriptions, studies and research works of the Christian preachers. The Catholic Church was present here in all times, having the village of Khusrava in Salmas province as its bishopric. According to documents, the Catholic mission here started in 1781. The Catholic Assyrians or Chaldeans in Khusrava totaled 16,700 towards the end of the 19th century. Our guide, Gevargis Sharlo, a common Assyrian man from Urmia, was gladly and enthusiastically leading us from village to village, telling us memorable stories about the Assyrian villages and their past. Here is the church of Mar Gevargis, St. George of Khusrava. It differs from other churches of this region. The front of the building is constructed with old tombstones. The church was finally ruined during the 1931 earthquake. Until 1918, 400 Assyrian families from surrounding settlements visited the place of worship.
Babdi Surayeva, Yemiyurusneteva, Shilalakha, Maschine Litweye danatla, Maschine Svakakuli Iran, Shitilit Leitre. Shilan Shrilan Gushapur, Mama and Papa's Lerdare, Shila Muchukle Suirailaka, Armnai Muchukle, Mama Lishantir Naidavdaiva, Papa Muyeva Bulharski Perец, Bdaiva Mudile, Харта Пуховка помидоры, и он занял одно место людей, Менаши Звакледюка, Зрили Бадамджан, بيبر بلغارسكي خرطة كيلدلي بالي أو تهران أكل دوچاني بابا تيابن بطماتا.
This figure drastically was decreased as a result of massacres perpetrated against the Syrians by Turkish and Kurdish brigands. Supposedly, the Franciscan order in Khusrava was established in 1318. The church of Mar Gevargis in the end of the 16th century was the seat of Chaldean Patriarch Simon IX. Missionary expansion started here in the 19th century. The pioneers were the American Protestants, Presbyterians from the American Board for Foreign Missions, headed by Justin Perkins. He paid a call on the Nestorian bishop of Gavilan, Mar Yohanan, who received Perkins in a friendly manner and later became his first tutor of the Syrian language. Among the American missionaries there were clergymen, teachers, merchants, publishers, and doctors. I felt a stronger desire to settle among the Nestorian Assyrians, at once as a missionary than among any people I have ever seen. wrote one of the American missionaries. They also liked the beautiful country. Urmia seemed altogether the finest, the most densely populated and highly cultivated tract they had seen in Asia. Settling in Urmia and neighboring Assyrian populated villages, the American missionaries established schools, opened almshouses and hospitals.
أنا أصلي ابن ألياون بابي من ماموني خيشوا روسيا خشيت أبشن تاما درنتيلون ندري يؤرمي قاشا إتوالا نه قاشا قديمي إتوالا قاشا هرموس قاشا داود قاشا يويل أديا ديتن جو كيفا إتلون قاشا هرموس من كل جور وأديا كيفا خوارت في درسة أمرا جو ألياوا بينك تيبا دعالوخينا نارا بابي دايتانيبا مشنيري أمريكاتي لون بتري سلطي ماني أمرها ممرون خرابة بيجيبا بدو دورة مثلا شيتة 4 سر المدرسة لنا رابي سر جزء توالان أصل الزاتة شبا جمادين شما قريبا ألا بيت ردتا.
Here's the village of Seir. The missionaries and their family members, having passed away during their hard but God-pleasing mission, are buried here. Here is the church of Mat Mariam. The American school used to be in this churchyard. The American preachers widely contributed to the development of the modern literary Assyrian language. Common Assyrians who spoke the Urmia dialect, spiced with Turkish and Persian words, could not understand ancient classical Assyrian, the language used by the churches. The American missionaries also established a publishing house and published spiritual literature in modern Assyrian. The periodical Zahir et Bara, Rays of Light, was one of them. In the middle of the 19th century, the mission of the Canterbury Archbishop of the Anglican Church started its activities among the Assyrians of this region. The preachers collaborated with and supported the Assyrian Church. They also promoted the classical Syriac language, published the Nestorian ritual manuscripts, and prepared clergymen for the Assyrian Church. In the second period of the 19th century, the missionaries came to Urmia. We often accuse them of disuniting the Assyrian nation because they chose the Assyrians belonging to the Church of the East and gave them instruction in their beliefs, that is, the Church of America, England, Germany and France. But we also must remember one important thing that missionaries did for our nation. They put our colloquial language, the language we spoke at our homes, into books. That is, the colloquial language became a language of books, magazines, newspapers and textbooks. Until then, the written language was only for clergymen or church clerks. Because of this significant work that missionaries implemented, the common Assyrians were able to read and write in a language comprehensive for themselves. The missionaries founded schools and universities as well. In Urmia, they opened a university known as Kala among the people, as it very much looked like a fortress. The textbooks in Assyrian needed for the students were published at the university. Western missionaries not only played a key role in Assyrians' educational life, but also introduced a number of agricultural tools, equipment, and modern technical achievements to the region. The wives of the missionaries and female missionaries themselves served with selfless devotion. Their positive influence and contribution to the tutorial sphere of Urmia was tremendous. Mrs. Shed was one of the famous missionaries. In Urmia there was a young ladies' seminary named after Fidelia Friske. In the beginning of the 20th century, during the hardest times for the Syrian nation, the seminary sheltered many orphans and refugees. A large number of the graduates continued their education abroad. There was a famous tradition in Urmia. The local Muslim population here was very superstitious. They would go on pilgrimage along with their sick relatives or family members to Christian shrines. There was an unshakable belief in Muslim pilgrims towards Christian priests who were supposed to cure the sick people with their prayers to the Lord. Mar Sarkis shrine of the Syrian village of the same name is one of the most celebrated Christian shrines of Urmia. Those who suffered from psychological diseases or sleepwalking were believed to be healed by staying under the holy walls of this cell close by the church. It was believed that after they had slept as long as they needed, they got healthy. This tradition, being retained through centuries, still continues to work miracles. In the end of the 19th and beginning of 20th century, names of different Assyrian writers such as Mar Tuma Odu, David Malek and Yuvil Varda became well known. Paul Bejan, a Catholic preacher from Salmast, Khusrava village, was the first local Assyrian whose works were published in the missionary press. In the beginning of the 20th century, the Assyrians were scattered in the region of Khoy, Salmast, Dilman, Tergavar, Mergavar, and Baradast of Iranian Atrpatakan or Azerbaijan. According to certain documentations, there were an estimated 100,000 Assyrians living in Iran at that time. The region of Urmia was famous for its flourishing orchards, gardens and fields. Over hundreds of years, common villagers were growing various kinds of fruits. The vineyards expanded across areas not far from the lake. The Assyrians were renowned grape growers in the region. Here is the gorgeous scenery of the Shamshadian village, surrounded with thriving orchards and blooming gardens. The church of this village bears the name of Bnei Shemuni, who was martyred with his 7 sons for his belief. The Church of the East marks their memory the first Tuesday every May. According to tradition, 7 trees, one for each son of Bnei Shemuni, grew on this hill. The Assyrians in Persia spoke in the dialect of the eastern branch of Aramaic. There were dialects of Urmia, Supurgan, Suldus, Tergavar, and Salmast. And the Assyrians that were living in Turkish populated territories of Iran's western Atrapatakan, Azerbaijan, spoke Turkish as their second language. The lowland Urmia Assyrians living in the villages of Tergavar, Mergavar, and Dasht provinces that were near the Turkish-Persian border differed from the highland Assyrians with their lifestyle and temper. There was also Kurdish population in this region. The highland Assyrians were known as courageous and brave soldiers. Balulan village is in the Tergavar province. There are no more Assyrians here. But their church of Martuma still stands and hosts a large number of Assyrians from surrounding areas and the priest of Urmia's Assyrian Mat Mariam church. Apostle Tuma, or Saint Thomas, is one of the adored and traditional saints of the Assyrian church. Numerous Assyrian churches bear his name. This church of Martuma has a power that transfers to believers. It's in the essence of Martuma's persona. He was an apostle and big devoted of Christian belief. He left Jerusalem for India to spread the light of Christianity there. One cannot imagine the difficulties he faced while getting from Jerusalem to India. He was martyred there for his holy duty. We believe that Saint Thomas, along with Saint Edda and Saint Mary, is the founder of the Church of the East. This is one of the reasons why he is one of the most adored and revered saints of the East. The Nestorian Church, now the Holy Apostolic Catholic Church of the East, has another old tradition. The clergymen and scribes of this church decorated and rewrote a number of manuscripts. The Assyrians were devoted to that tradition, and numerous valuable holy manuscripts were created in Urmia. Throughout centuries up to the missionary expansion, the rites and masses in Assyrian churches were held with handwritten manuscripts. Along with them, booklets with Assyrian prayers which could protect people from evil eye and diseases were also created, known as khrshis. These kinds of beliefs were widely spread through the Assyrian population. Some of the missionaries collected these scriptures and booklets. They are now in different libraries and museums of the world. The favorable climate, though, did not make the Urmia Assyrians' life easier. Hard social conditions made them leave Urmia for foreign countries. A large number of them went to the Russian Empire and to the Caucasus, Tiflis and Yerevan. Many Assyrians took part in the Tiflis-Kars-Yerevan railroad constructional works. Many of them chose the Chachagog way. The Urmia Assyrians still remember what Chachagog or cross-stealer means. Even without understanding the real meaning of this Armenian-rooted word, they know the cross-stealer and his mission to leave the family behind and wander around the world for years, to take any unfair or inhuman measures in order to make one silver coin. That's what they, the cross-stealers, do. It's said that the church of Gulpashan village was renovated by Chachagogs financial support after they had gotten back home. The settlers of Gulpashan village will never forget the 1915 tragic events, the massacre of the villagers when the Kurdish bands, together with the Turkish soldiers, eliminated the village and murdered its people. According to different documentations, the city of Urmia possesses a history of 1,000 years. At the beginning of the 19th century, it was a city fortress with 5 gates that would close at night. In the beginning of the 20th century, Urmia had many colorful Eastern markets, caravanserais. At that time, the city had 30,000 population of Persians, Kurds, Turks, Armenians, Assyrians, and Jews. The old Assyrian church of Mat Mariam and the residence of the governor were here. This is the church of Mat Mariam of Urmia. It is one of the world's ancient churches. About 2,500 years ago it was a temple devoted to fire worship. As the Bible reveals, 3 heathen priests of the Zoroastrian temple, hearing that Jesus was born, went to him and adopted his beliefs. Coming back to Urmia, they changed the temple into a Christian church, and for over 19 centuries it has been functioning as a church. The bodies of a Russian monk who died in 1898, Mar Ilya, who died in 1928, and Mar Yuchanan, who was the first Iranian Assyrian to have been in America, rest at the old church. According to tradition, 1 or 2 of the above-mentioned Zoroastrians are buried here as well. During the World War I, Russians moved their tombstones to Kiev, Ukraine. The oldest part of the church is the site where the fire worship place of Zoroastrians was set up. From the start of the 19th century, Urmia's Nestorian Assyrians turned to the Russian Empire. The cooperation between the Nestorian Assyrians and their Christian neighbor can be found in a series of letters and documentations. In March 1897, a treaty was signed by the Assyrians, which meant conversion to Russian Orthodoxy. It was signed in St. Petersburg's Alexandra Nevskaya Cathedral between the Russian Orthodox Church representatives and Mar Yonan, the bishop of Supergan. In the same year, the mission of the Russian Orthodox Church started in Urmia. From the beginning, it was a great success among the Nestorian Assyrians, and a considerable proportion of them converted to Russian Orthodoxy. The converted Assyrians did not have churches. Their masses were held in Nestorian Assyrian churches, with the Russian Orthodox Church's order and rituals translated into Assyrian.
За эти 20 лет
The Russian mission in Urmia started in 1898 and functioned till the departure of Urmia's Assyrians in the summer of 1918. Throughout these 20 years, the Russian mission of Urmia had its victories, advances and mournful times as well. Among the successful activities is the support of the Urmian historians in various aspects of their life in relations with the Muslim governors. The Russian mission in Urmia opened many schools in the Assyrian village of the region. A constellation of clergymen and teachers was created who all got Russian Orthodox education. The one that many young people got at Russia's seminaries, gymnasiums. A considerable part of the graduates from Assyrian schools and the Central College of the Russian Mission of Urmia were sent to Russia to higher educational institutes. Many prominent figures of the Assyrian culture and church, having made contribution to the 20th century Assyrian culture and history, were students of Urmia's Russian mission. From its very start, the Russian mission in Urmia was engaged in translational activities. Various religious rituals of the Old Russian Orthodox Church were translated into Old Classical Assyrian, which was the language of the Syrian Orthodox churches of Urmia. The magazine Orthodox Urmia was published both in Assyrian and Russian. The magazine came out from 1905 and after a short pause started again in 1911, but in 4 years it stopped come out because of World War I. Due to objective reasoning, the Assyrians sympathized with Russian Empire and considered them as their defender country. As a result of such perception, many Assyrians in Urmia became Russian Orthodox. For instance, a notable part of the Ada villagers in 1897 converted to Russian Orthodoxy. Later in 1901, they founded the Church of Mar Yochanan. The village of Ada had 600 houses of Assyrians. Today this figure is smaller, 70 houses, and only in the summers, in a season where thick crowds of Assyrians can be seen. The stone shrine of Mar Daniel, near the village, still stands for its pilgrims. It used to be a place of pilgrimage not only for the Christians but for the Muslims as well. In 1906, some Assyrians began a magazine in Neo-Aramaic, literary Urmia Aramaic, Kuchva, the Star. The magazine was considered as one of the signs of a growing nationalism. The publishers of Kuchva were connected to the Protestant mission, but the magazine was aimed at all Assyrians, irrespective of their religious belongings. During the World War I era, when an entire community of the Christian population in Turkey was exterminated by the Ottoman and Kurdish powers, A range of mass destruction happened in Persia as well, mainly in the Urmia region. Military action started here with the Russian army's entrance in 1914. Bloody events burst out in Atrapatakan, the western part of Persia, where the local Assyrian population was put to death. With Russia's withdrawal in January 1915, 25,000 Assyrians fled with the Russian soldiers. Many of them, being in helpless and miserable conditions, sought refuge in the missions of foreign preachers. The American Friske Seminary sheltered hundreds of orphans and homeless Assyrians. Though very often the walls of these foreign organizations too were shattered by the Kurdish bandits, hungry for blood and plunder. The brave villagers of Taki Ardishay defended their village in 1914-1915, the time of the darkest episodes of the Assyrian nation. Another valiant page of heroism was recorded in Assyrian's epic of survival. Nearly 70 Assyrian villages were pillaged and destroyed during the years of slaughter. A large part of the residents died of suffering and hardships of the long road of deportations, winding from Urmia to the Caucasus. One can never describe the brutalities perpetrated by Turkish and Kurdish forces and the inexplicable tortures and afflictions the Assyrians in Persia face. With the end of the World War I, the surviving Assyrians returned home to Persia, predominantly the region of Urmia. Having coped with grievous wave of countless disasters and tribulations, the repatriated Assyrians lived a comparatively peaceful life by reconstructing or rebuilding their half-ruined, deserted homes and villages.
ما لوبتگانیم و فلک لوبت باز از روی حقیقتی نه از روی مجاز یک چند در
If this world I could control, eliminating the world would be my role. I would create the world anew, whole, such that
یک چند در این بساط بازی کردیم رفتیم به صندوق عدم یک یک باز
such that the free soul would attain desired goal. Khayyam. Sophists say that the world and life are passing. The world is empty and passing indeed, but the truth is everlasting there. Jami. The world is passing, so are the darkest and brutal pages of history. Everlasting truth is proved by a large Assyrian community. Which in the 21st century lives across Lake Urmia and in the other districts and cities of Iran. The modern-day Islamic Republic of Iran is a prosperous and developed eastern country. Its preserved old fascination and the Aryan's rich culture. With the end of World War I, a large majority of Assyrians, having left their homes during the war and the genocide, returned to Urmia and founded new settlements. Later, communities grew in different cities and towns of Iran. In Tehran, Urmia, Salmast, Tabriz, Ahvaz, Kazvin, Shahinshar, Hamadan, Shiraz, Badarakos and Kermanshah. Assyrian churches are in many of these areas with Sunday schools attached to the churches, where people can study the Assyrian language, the gospel and history of the church. The young Assyrians attend sport and cultural clubs and live in active community life and the city's organized communities. A variety of scholars from the Syrian community greatly contributed to the development of Iranian culture and science. A large scale of Assyrian villages have been abandoned over time. The inhabitants have moved to larger Iranian cities or immigrated to developed foreign countries to make a better life. Today those villages are mainly inhabited with Kurds and Turkish-speaking tribes. In some villages, though, Assyrian houses and orchards remain serving as summer houses to urban Assyrians. In spite of the fact that many Assyrians left these places, they miss Urmi, their forefathers' hearts. It's become a tradition for them to visit Urmia in summertime to satisfy the longing for native land. How many poetic lines have been dedicated to the crystal blue waters of this stunning lake? How many times has this lake been the witness of love confessions to incomparably amazing black eyes of Assyrian beauties?
شمشة شرارة شمشة قنيلة بلطلن خضارة ترطلن ياتن نهويل خا شمشي خيتا هيجلي قنية باتد مخبت خليتا مو بشليلان مداها دنيا شق من تريلب بخباني وأربا أتوات يطيماني وخا آلاها ثقيلة شبرة بيد قلامة زونب كدوخ قصة خبا بمرز دياما بديوتا دشرارة برشمخ تلقتن لسبرت عالدوري شمشة بصمخة لتلاشارة خشكة بتالق تاتبارة إنا شمشي هجلي جانية بسبب زرقته إلى شرارة.
This is Saatluv, village of the Urmia region with its narrow streets, two-story houses wrapped in orchards and with 50 traditional Assyrian families.
چما بری خیلی ماریا چما بری خیلی ماریا یارخ تل بینو رم تل شفقتو ملاخی چی سغدیلی زدیکی چی خقریلی چما بری خیلی ماریا شمو بشبخن رخمو بت خقرن خوب وجور دیو بتمدن شمو بشبخن رخمو بت خقرن بتشبخن علىهي هالخي سبقاتي بس صح من شمية هل هذه قاتي خافاروكا مثل ألسكيبا أب من كورة قملي بالشبخن إلو هالخيش.
Like it was centuries ago, the grandmother of the family reads psalms for the grandchildren gathered around her. She leads them to the temple of their faith to preserve the native belief through centuries, to keep the light of the cross always burning in their souls, and to make it shine over the age-old land.
قبل خشم بلطير فيلات مثل الكبيرة طليل الشيول بيوم اطلاقهم من جاب نيتي تيم بردي مبارا باري تدادا اتادق دوز جي امرا تما خصلي وبرشماخ صلوتم صالح مدر تما ايتا بلطا خلافت خيلت مرج برجس شوين او هيران او قابلة تيمو شميمو خبرت على صاليو سلطوكم شميمو قالوا الشولي شمان هي مهمان ديو قبلتهم نطرتهم قبلتهم.
This is Kızlashan, one of Urmia's unique villages, where only Christians live, an estimated 30 Assyrian and Armenian families. There is a magnificent Eastern stone church of Mar Shalida in the village, where both the Assyrian and Armenian believers come to pray, as the church is wide open to Christians. No matter where he lives, in a village or a town, it's easy for an Assyrian to make his living because of his hard-working, just, and creative nature. Assyrians are businesslike and diligent, with a significant contribution to Iran's economic development and growth. They are engaged in entrepreneurship, trade, small and middle-sized businesses, farming, and gardening. At Urmia's taxi service Ashur, Assyrians are predominantly involved. They are well aware of neighboring Assyrian shrines and villages. They gladly serve tourists and locals, taking them to native villages and temples. Fish farming is widely developed in this region. Assyrian entrepreneur Andrius Latifi from Barandus Tazakent village is engaged in pisciculture. He grows thousands of varieties of fish on his farm, mainly river trout. His fish pond is close to Lake Urmia and is a ravishingly beautiful place where his family gathers in the evenings. Then Assyrian voices spread high above the mountains, mingling with the tender rustle of trembling trees. O friend, for the morrow let us not worry. This moment we have now, let us not hurry. When our time comes, we shall not tarry. With 7,000 years olds, our burden carry. City of Urmia. This is the administrative center of Urmia region, which has a big Assyrian community. The city prospers and its borders grow year by year, ingesting the surrounding villages. The center of Urmia's city Assyrian community, Motfa, that is, association is located in the village of Charbash, which has merged with the city. The church and a graveyard of this Assyrian village still remain, where remarkable and very old gravestones can be found. Each of them is a history, a soul life story of an Assyrian. Over time, a considerable part of Syrians living in the neighboring villages moved to Urmia city. The Assyrian Eastern Church of Mat Mariam, Evangelical St. John Church, Catholic Church of Mat Mariam and other Assyrian churches function in the city. Here is the ancient Assyrian church of Mat Mariam. Every Sunday, believers come to this imposing shrine and pray to the Lord. Today, this child will be baptized with holy water and be reborn by becoming Christian. He will maintain his mother tongue and national traditions. It's the church that unites the nation as a whole and upholds its spirit and distinctions. The goal of our church and its affiliated organizations is keeping the Assyrian language and teaching it to our children, including the teaching of the Holy Book. We do these activities on Fridays, the only day when children do not go to schools. More than 100 young boys and girls attend our classes on Friday mornings. After noon, 250-300 children come to learn their mother tongue and the Bible, along with other things, in order not to get bored. This Assyrian Evangelical Church was founded in the 19th century by American Presbyterians. The first printing machine to be brought to Urmia by the American mission was placed in this building. The first Assyrian books were published here. The church has a Sunday school and publishes literature. The Assyrian radio informational program of Urmia starts every day at 9 p.m. When the Assyrians host each other, most of the time they listen to news broadcasted in their mother language and follow the latest world events. They are particularly interested in what is happening in their historical homeland, in Iraq. These glowing-eyed children, who enthusiastically demonstrate their knowledge of Assyrian and other languages, are alumni of the Urmia's Assyrian kindergarten. The number of children at a kindergarten is small in summers, while in the other seasons it grows. They learn the Assyrian alphabet to sing, recite in Assyrian and play different games.
لطف خافك جو خاشاكي تسويت عينت بك أتخذ بندايا وبتيارة بكادا وبزماية على أتخذ يوبة.
In the summer, countless of Assyrians from neighboring and distant countries, cities and villages visit their relatives and friends here. With an unspeakable yearning and desire, they take the road to all the long-standing traditional holy sites of Urmia. Over a long time period, the Christians of this region, the Assyrians and Armenians, have stayed faithful to their customs and Holy Cross. They go to a phenomenal Armenian medieval shrine, to a Vank, or a temple named after the Apostle Thaddeus. During the pilgrimage in the second part of July, the pilgrims settle in tents around the church for 3 days, sing and dance together, go to church, take part in masses and pray. Over time, the Assyrians have shaped a strong and powerful community in Iran. Having removed to the capital Tehran, they have carved out their home and now live a rich life by staying connected with the community affairs. They play a key role in the state's economic development and have representatives in science, culture, and other domains. Numerous valuable books, documents and ancient manuscripts related to Assyrian history and culture are cautiously and carefully kept in the library. Prominent intellectual Hannibal Gevargis was urged by his father Rabbi Yosip Gevargis to start his humanitarian and nation-devoted act. His rich collection has been gathered over 40 years and includes an assortment of translations, Farsi language literature about the Assyrians, and also literature written by Assyrian authors in different languages. Hannibal Gevargis is a member of National Iranian Library, Iran National Archives Organization. He is an author of 7 monographies and 80 articles published in varied newspapers and magazines. Another great scholar of Iran, Dr. Shmuel Pira, established a fantastic museum of Assyrian history and culture in his own house by means of his own finances. As holy relics, unique exhibits related to our nation's way of life, art, literature, architecture, music, and customs are collected here. Dr. Pira is an author of many books and works. Iranian government nominated him for the Nobel Prize at one time. Assyrians' diligent nature can be seen in the capital as well. This Assyrian cafe Ashur, famous for its delicious food, gathers many Assyrians in the evenings who come here from different parts of Tehran to meet each other and exchange news. The language and the music that is heard here is primarily Assyrian. Assyrians in Tehran have a comfortable life and thoroughly keep their national faith, customs and values. Here is a common Assyrian family of Tehran. Mrs. Valentina Ilyazade's family gets together for dinner. The Assyrians' traditional and favored meal bushala is the special counterpiece of the table. Four sons help the mother. Their sister will come soon. All the family is together. Only the father is away. He is at work now. The Tehran Assyrians are a close-knit community. The Assyrian Association, Motva, is the center of their activities. Imperative issues and concerns of the community are raised and solved in this welcoming office. The Assyrian community of Tehran has an association which includes different groups such as the Kukhbut Ashur, Assyrian Star Sport Club, that is divided in two groups, one for men and one for women. We have also a female choir and a union of women. We publish a magazine, Matvana Aturaya, Assyrian newsletter, both in Assyrian and Persian, though we have intention to publish it in English and Arabic as well. We want the magazine to become a weekly. Ideally, we want to make it a daily. Unfortunately, there are certain problems to make this reality. Our association has 1,500 members. There is also a youth union, which helps organize various activities such as Christmas, Chalu Sulaka, Ascension Day, Nusardin, Pagan New Year. Throughout decades, Assyrians have had their representative at the Iranian parliament, Majlis. It must be someone who lives with his nation's problems and needs. The Assyrian representative resides in Motva as well, which is a great opportunity for him to stay in direct contact and linked with the Assyrians. We have schools in Iran with Assyrian language classes. Our goal is to keep the Assyrian language, culture, history and Christian beliefs. We have Assyrian organizations here for various activities. They do their best to keep us as one nation and to preserve our national history and traditions. Iran has had many champions of Assyrian nationality in sports. I urge you, never forget your forefathers' tombs. I think that the deputy and the nation must be connected. In our case, it is. It's a unique bridge between the deputy and the community. This way the people's problems and needs can be heard and solved. The primary and secondary school of St. Mary for young ladies, or Shushan, as it's known among the Syrians, and Behnam, primary and secondary school for young boys, operate in Tehran. Assyrian children predominantly study here. The Eastern Assyrian evangelical and Catholic churches moved to Tehran along with their flocks. And despite their belonging to different confessions, churches are unified. You can see priests of dissimilar churches during wedding or other ceremonies. Tehran includes Eastern Church of Marge Vargis, Catholic Church of Holy Mother of God, Mat Mariam, and Mar Yosef. And Evangelical Church of Mar Thoma, St. Thomas. It's a wedding ceremony at the Mar Thoma Church. With the Lord's blessing, another Assyrian family forms under these holy arcs. May they continue and pass down traditions of our long-suffering nation. Our church functions every day. On Sundays we have gatherings of our church members. There are special activities for children on Fridays. After noon on Fridays, young boys and girls get together, and on Wednesdays there is a gathering of the church's women union, which has its own activities. We also have a periodical called Alab Utab and a website of the same name. We are in good relations with all kinds of Assyrian church functioning in the territory of Iran and with the Majlis deputies and Assyrian Association. The narrow street of southern Khorramshahr, one of the Tehran districts, leads to the Catholic Church of Holy Mother of God, Mat Mariam. The church is crowded today as it is on every Sunday. Believers came for Mass. The officiator today is the Bishop Abuna Ramsi Jarmu. The Mass means sacrifice, gift. The sacrifice is Jesus Christ Himself. He is offered to God at every Mass for atonement and expiation of humanity's sins. The Mass is the expression of Lord's eternal love towards the crown of His creation, the human being. Our church has 3,000 members in Tehran, where an estimated 12 million people live. We gather in this church of Mat Mariam for Sunday Masses. Near the church there are Bible lessons for children and youth, and also readings of the Holy Book for the church female servants. We have a house attached to the church for all the Syrian people, who all are under the care of our church. The Assyrian community in this country has a very old history. Lots of human destinies and life stories have passed under this sky, leaving a track in the forthcoming generation's memories. The grateful generation did not forget their ancestors or leave their tombstones careless and forlorn. The largest cities, especially capitals, have always pulled the people in, giving them chances to make livings and create freely. This is how Tehran has been for the Assyrians. But there has been and still is a very special place for them where they go back again and again, where they have left their roots, where after the First World War and genocide they have found a shelter that has become a second homeland for them. It's undeniably Urmia. And it's not an accident at all that over a few years, with the support of Iranian government, Assyrian sport games named Tammuz take place in Urmia. The games enable the Syrian remnants scattered throughout the world to meet and get acquainted with each other in the favor of assembling and preserving the national language, culture, and traditions. Sportsmen from Iranian cities and regions and from foreign countries as well, such as Armenia, Georgia, Iraq, Syria, participate in Tammuz. During which time they live in the same place, and when the games are over, they dance and sing together, then visit holy sites of Urmia. And again, the triumphal sounds of Assyrian Sheikhani stretch across cherished Lake Urmia.